everyone. So I'm lucky enough to have the easy job here. I just get to ask the questions. A really big welcome to our three panelists today. I'm going to ask them quickly to introduce themselves and what they do at their organizations. Marsha.
Hi everyone, Marsha from Sesame Workshop, South Africa, based in Johannesburg, ex-Breakout, we need to say that.
Hi everyone, I'm Abdulhamid Haider. I'm the founder of Darcel. We are a non-profit tech startup. We do learning by texting on channels like WhatsApp.
Hi, I'm Jo Newton from British Council, based in Pretoria. We are an education and cultural opportunities organization from the UK.
For those of you that have been on this Chat for Impact journey with us, we obviously blew up quite a bit during COVID with a lot of health use cases. But this year, the Chat for Impact Accelerator was dominated by education organizations applying from all across the world to be a part of the accelerator. And we're seeing a lot of movement in this space. People testing out different solutions, trying to see what works on chat, how they can get essential education to people who no longer have access, particularly during COVID. But nowadays, realizing this is a great alternative to supplement in-person education as well. So I'm going to ask the crew here, Joanne, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your EdTech solution and how you guys developed that during COVID.
Okay, so our chatbot or chat service is called Learn English on WhatsApp, and it's part of a bigger project which has been running since 2012 called the Learn English Audio Project, which focuses on innovative and inclusive quality language, English language, teaching and learning materials for schools. But the chatbot, Learn English on WhatsApp, just came about from us sitting there together at home in March and April 2020, thinking, how are we going to reach teachers? We'd sit on those long Teams calls together. And I think Yolanda and I, my colleague here, and some other colleagues in South Africa, we were thinking the last thing you want to do as a parent is have to go on all these websites and Facebook and download all of these materials. It's overwhelming. Like, what if we could just get them on WhatsApp? Because we're already on WhatsApp. Like, what if it was just there? Then we saw the WHO chatbot and the South Africa chatbot, and then got onto the Turn.io website and applied. And by May, we had a chatbot. So we were trying to solve the problem of accessing teachers and learners during the pandemic with the materials that we had.
Thanks. One of my favorite parts about interacting with their chatbot in the beginning was they definitely have the most innovative use of emojis. Their entire story menu, each story has its own individual emoji. I encourage you to check it out. It's great. They turned what can be a block of text into this beautifully emojified list of stories. So that was really great. Abdul, would love to hand over to you. Tell us a bit about your EdTech solution.
Thanks. We launched with a focus on chatbots in response to COVID when, as you said, many students didn't have access to kind of advanced digital technology, things like Zoom, and we knew that many students had access to things like WhatsApp, and we wanted to reach them. And Darcel is a simple chatbot that allows students to practice and learn math by answering questions on WhatsApp. So if you are a student, you will kind of use it from home, typically on a mother's device or a father's device, where you will get questions that are aligned with your curriculum, and then based on your responses, the algorithm figures out what your level is and what your learning gaps are, and tailors the content to your level to help students catch up, because we know that during COVID, a lot of learning losses were exacerbated. Now, this is something that any student can use, but we also work with schools so that it's integrated as part of formal education. So the math teachers in most of our use cases are actually the ones that are asking students to use it. And in exchange, they get weekly reports telling them about their students' activity levels, their weaknesses, and kind of where they're getting stuck. So that creates a kind of a source of motivation for students to be using this chatbot, but also gives teachers a valuable kind of feedback loop and valuable data about where their students are. And of course, in addition to it being effective because of our algorithms, it's really kind of fun and designed to be gamified so that for students it feels like a learning game with all of the kind of bells and whistles of fancy ed tech that is developed for kind of hyper-connected students just in an easily accessible channel, kind of being WhatsApp, and also Facebook Messenger and other chat tools.
Yeah, I was interacting with the Docile chatbot just now, and it asked me a harder maths question that I was quite prepared for, and I realized how long it has been since I did school maths. So I might be at the bottom of your learning pathway there, but thanks. And Moshe, what about you with Sesame Workshop?
Yeah, cool. So we're, most people might know Sesame Street. We're a global leader in early childhood development and education, specifically using the power of mass media and television in particular to educate and entertain children. We've been doing this for 53 years. It started off in the US in 1969, and in South Africa in particular, we've been on air with a show called Takalani Sesame, which many of you might know or might have watched when you were smaller. For 22 years. So as others have said, when COVID struck, the organization was really grappling with the fact of how do we support children and families who are suddenly, plucked out of school, stuck at home, struggling to find resources, not knowing how to keep your child entertained and educated and feeling that you have to do something to keep them busy during this horrible time. So globally, the organization started to work with a Turn team, I believe about 2 years ago, from countries in Latin America mainly, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but really trying to explore how can WhatsApp be used to augment and strengthen the work that we already do on, let's say, television or other digital channels, but continuing the conversation and continuing support for parents and children who are stuck at home.
Yeah, thanks. I see a lot of similarities. I think the one particular hard part, or one of the many hard parts about education is you're dealing with quite a wide audience, right? You are looking at parents and caregivers as well as children, and finding the right balance between attracting both of those audiences, I think, is particularly tough. So this panel is going to go into a little bit of a deep dive about, you built these services. How do you grow them? How do you scale them? What type of numbers do you guys want to see? What does that look like? What have you tried and failed at so far? So we're going to start, Abdul, I'm going to start with you this time. Tell us a bit more about that model and how it's differed from other things that you've tried.
Yeah, so one of the key ingredients for our success so far has been that it's a very lightweight model for teachers. A lot of teachers are very burned out from COVID and from students being behind, and a lot of failed, unfortunately, EdTech interventions over the last few years. So we wanted to make sure from the get-go that our model was very lightweight. So we only ask teachers to spend 5 minutes a week reviewing the reports that we generate and sharing those results with students. And then most of the actual work happens by students from home. And that's been crucial because a lot of efforts failed because trying to integrate EdTech into a classroom where it's not already there is a big challenge. The other advantage, of course, is that we don't require new devices. And a lot of the interventions in EdTech these days are focused on distributing tablets, which, of course, are very expensive and operationally very difficult to scale. So that's also been a fantastic advantage. And maybe the last thing I'll say is that we've been very focused on working with public school systems, because really, if you want to reach the students that are at the bottom of the pyramid, the students that need help the most, the only way to get to them is through their math teachers and through the schools. But that does require going slowly and stage by stage. So for example, in Jordan, we started working with 2 schools, got some data based on that, and that was positive, then expanded to 10 schools, ran an RCT, got more rigorous evidence, and ultimately that allowed us to expand to now 100 schools, and hopefully national expansion is next. So it does require a long iterative process, and it does require that you're also working with government partners that are equally excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that, the behavioral scientist in me wants to ask you a little bit more about what role your RCT had in helping you get that buy-in that you needed to start scaling your solution. Love you to talk a bit about that.
Absolutely. So there is admittedly a lot of skepticism around EdTech. A lot, if you look at the research, a lot of efforts have failed to produce the outcomes that people were hoping for over the last 10 years. So getting that rigorous evidence that this is actually improving learning outcomes is quite important. But probably equally important has been the qualitative feedback from teachers and from students who, by and large, love the simplicity of what we're doing. and the fact that the learnings are visible. They can see themselves, answering questions kind of more correctly and advancing to more difficult topics. And from a behavioral perspective, that positive feedback and motivation also gets them to be more excited about math, but also about kind of the initiative more broadly.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Joe, I'm going to come to you next. Tell us a little bit about your scale and how you managed to achieve that. What did you do?
Okay, so we started in May 2020. We got a little bit of money from the UK government to work on reaching teachers through WhatsApp. And because they gave us a little bit of money for that, of course, we had a target. So our target, I think, was to reach 25,000 teachers, parents, caregivers with the material, the weekly audio lessons and the stories that we send out. You'll hear more about it later. So it's a little bit of pressure when you don't even know what a chatbot is and you've promised you'll reach 25,000 users by December. And we did do that. So mostly initially through Facebook ads. So I was looking today, so we spent 1.7 million rand in 5 countries to onboard most of our 25,000 users. So it ended up being like 3 rand and 36 cents per acquisition, or about 19 cents per users. We now have 49,000 users, so the other half have come on organically. Luckily, our project is embedded. Our partner is the DBE, so we've benefited from all kinds of, promotion that way. We did, the tool, the WhatsApp service now, or the tool, it was an emergency response tool, but now it's become almost like an iPod. So the teachers are using it in class. They have all their audio files with lessons for the year on it, and they're playing it, and the speaker on their phone, like an MP3 player, like a portable device. It's amazing. So because of that, we now do face-to-face training with the teachers as well. Yolanda, I think you've done face-to-face training with about 2,500 teachers this year. So those 2,500 teachers become users. But they're obviously continuing to share it. We've been written up in kind of DBE newsletters. We've got a strong relationship with the South African Teachers Association who share it. So I think half was paid, driven engagement, and the other half kind of is organic. And I think we still have a pretty good re-engagement rate too, because of that 49,000, there's a big chunk that are like, ooh, what's this British Council thing with all the pretty pictures? But I think of that, about 37,000 have actually downloaded and accessed materials, and then a large proportion of them have downloaded a lot of material that they continue to use. Yeah.
Amazing. It reminds me of some of the early days of Mom Connect, where we had FAQs on USSD and mothers got all 50 messages, basically went through the whole menu, and it sounds like your users are doing exactly the same thing. And that comes as a result of really great content. I mean, you can't deny that organic traffic doesn't happen for everyone. You need to have a sort of understanding of your target audience, what they need from your service in order to get that level of engagement and that level of kind of organic reach. Marsha, obviously with the Sesame having this incredible content on TV, how have you guys approached integrating television or other channels like YouTube and chat?
We have not yet scaled any of our chatbots. Let me just say that out loud. I think you might ask, well, why not? As you said, we are a globally recognized brand in 150 countries. Why is this not, having billions of users on your platforms? And I think it's because of a few reasons. I think obviously we have a very solid track record in working with television and edutainment for children on digital channels. But to be honest, I think WhatsApp and chatbots are quite new technologies in the organization. And our colleagues in Latin America have been quite experimental in trying out these new things and learning a lot of lessons and passing them on to us here in South Africa. We are learning as we go. At this stage, our chatbot in South Africa is very nearly done. We're hoping to launch that soon, and we think the strategies that we will follow are things like, publicizing it on the TV show itself, driving traffic to the chatbot from the show directly. Very few people know that Sesame actually does on-the-ground work in South Africa and in many other countries. We don't only produce the TV show for children, but we also work in communities. So there we engage parents, teachers, social workers, and even government officials in terms of how they can introduce and integrate play into the classroom and into the household. So those that on-the-ground footprint would also help us recruit people to the chatbot. And then, we're really here these next 2 days to learn from all the experts in the room that have scaled their chatbots to millions of people. And some of the themes I'm hearing are things like, your content needs to be fresh. You need to build in things like feedback loops. You need a human help desk. You need incentives, gamification, personalization, avatars, radio. I mean, it's just crazy. So we're here to learn. We're not proclaiming to have all the answers at all, but it's been very useful to learn from others on what they've done to scale so far.
Yeah, thanks, Masha. I think I had a chat with one of your colleagues probably a year or so ago about them using WhatsApp groups in the underground activity that they were using and as a coordination tool. And I think that has presented an enormous opportunity to link people from a WhatsApp group into services available on the WhatsApp business platform. And we're very excited that new features like communities are launching on WhatsApp, and hopefully soon. I'm looking at Ben very carefully. Hopefully soon on the business platform as well, that have this enormous opportunity to take advantage of those organic, on-the-ground, self-organizing groups and enable us to share that content and these services that are so useful in that space as well. So I wondered if any of the others of you have had experience with chat groups or anything other on WhatsApp.
I mean, ours actually came from having WhatsApp groups. So when we wanted to reach the teachers during the pandemic, we ended up with 9 groups of, 260, what's the max? I don't know, 200 and something teachers in each one. And now you've got 9 Facebook groups who are like, this is impossible. And that's actually what led us to automating and everything like that. But yeah, British Council, we do a lot of teacher development, using WhatsApp groups. We've even rolled out an entire course in Nigeria and South Africa where teachers learn to teach live lessons on WhatsApp. 45-minute lessons according to the curriculum using WhatsApp the whole time. It's like MIT research informed. There was a grassroots project in South Africa, and then we took it up, and we've trained thousands of teachers in doing that. It's phenomenal. So you can have 35 children on WhatsApp, and you can teach them. They send back voice notes, they answer with emojis, you present the lesson, the handout of the lesson. So actually, we have a lot of work that we're doing using WhatsApp in other areas. So if we're able to somehow kind of bring it all together, what we're doing with the automation and Yolanda and Deb as coaches on the back end, and then those teacher development projects, I think it's incredible because it's the best way and the most inclusive way to work with teachers in South Africa. Yeah.
Amazing.
As a parent of 2 young children, I can say that I think my daughter is in grade R this year, and I'm probably on 5 different WhatsApp groups for her class, her school, the grade R group, a mom support group, 2-3 of them. It's like a travel group, a school drop-off group. It's crazy. So if we can tap into those, for parent networks, tap into those networks, they already exist, get your message out there. I think it's a no-brainer. We just need to do it.
I completely agree. We're here on the stage and we've got an amazing group of people here. Is there anything that you feel that is missing and would make scaling easier in your lives? Taking your chatbot from 0 to, you all are quite modest. Sesame has hit tens of thousands of users in Latin America, and you all went from 0 to thousands, right? And is there anything that you think is missing in the ecosystem around how we scale these services? I know a lot of people come to us and to Chat for Impact and ask us, how do we build a go-to-market strategy? you see these examples of big numbers from the World Health Organization and these other services. And as Andy said in his presentation, that's because there was a lot of motivated, actually terrified people looking for information during that time. And that's not the case for every use case. And so we need to keep learning and sharing and opening up new avenues for getting people on board. And so is there anything you feel is missing in the ecosystem that you would like, either features on the WhatsApp platform that we can ask for, or anything else?
Recipe for engagement. Can you please develop that, Pippa?
Sure, Marsha. We're working on it.
It's something that when you see your numbers go down or when you see people are not returning to the chatbot, what are some of the things we should be doing or trying to get people back? What is it? Is it incentives? Is it new content? Is it a gamification platform? I don't know. We are going to look at you, I'm telling you now, to tell us what we should be doing, from a engagement perspective. I think that's what we're wondering about.
I mean, you should come to my workshop tomorrow on building for engagement. No, I'm just like, Joe, you were about to say something.
Well, I think what you recently released, look, I'm going to be honest, I was on that back end all the time until about September 2021, and I haven't been on it much in the last year. But I see Yolanda and Deb, the other woman who works on the back end. I think you call them nudges, I don't know. And then, so on the first day of term 4, for example, this year, all the users in South Africa get a message, I got one, that says, "Welcome back to school. Please don't forget to download your lessons for term 4. Have a great term." Or on World Literacy Day, "Happy World Literacy Day. Please come on and download a story." So I think we got that idea from you. So that those kind of campaigns are really important. So I personally don't think it's about drowning and always putting on new content. I think you have to have good, solid content that can be used year after year. Like our audio content was actually written with the DBE in 2012. It's linked to the curriculum, and it's still relevant today. And it's became even more relevant during COVID. So if the content is really, really, really good, you don't need new content, but you do need to remind people to go back to it. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that's been interesting as we've watched these engagement patterns develop over running all of these chat services over the last couple of years is that what we find has the best engagement and the best re-engagement are what we've kind of dubbed internally as utility services, but something it's a quick, short interaction that answers a task that someone wants to get done. I want to find the latest COVID numbers. That's all I want to do for my region. I engage quickly and I get an answer back. And next time I remember and I want to check the numbers, I go back to that service. And we're finding that the engagement on WhatsApp is quite different to publishing on other social media platforms where you go there and you scroll through for entertainment. If you think about how you use WhatsApp on your phone, you use WhatsApp to ask someone for something, right? Your husband to pick up the milk on the way home, one of your colleagues for something, or you want some information about something that you don't have. And the third option is you're lonely and you want some social connection with your friends. These are the only reasons we turn to chat. For us organizations, thinking about those 3 reasons why people engage make a huge difference in designing your service and what becomes your chatbot has become a utility, an MP3 player for teachers in their classrooms, right? And Abdul, your work as well, that feedback loop is so important to giving teachers that value back and something they can really use in their day-to-day lives. So I wanted to ask you if you have anything to add or any key messages that you have for this audience today.
I think broadly we're only scratching the surface of what we can do with kind of edtech on WhatsApp. And there is kind of the first wave of chatbots that are kind of providing information with these kind of short utilities. But now there's a second wave of entire interactive experiences kind of on WhatsApp, where it's not just a one message thing, where like in our case, we're seeing students, spend hours on the WhatsApp answering kind of hundreds of questions kind of, at a time. And that's a very different kind of model from kind of what we're used to. And we also need to be humble and say like, there's a lot to be learned about this, about how do we keep them motivated, like how do we time those nudges, and how do we get the content delivered right, not just on WhatsApp, but also what the offline kind of model for that is working with schools. So we're still kind of at a very early stage. Kind of in our case, we're doing A/B tests to kind of figure out what's working, but admittedly have a long way to go. But that's also exciting because there's a lot more that we can kind of achieve in terms of educational outcomes through WhatsApp. And if we get it right, there's hundreds of millions of students of additional students that we will be able to reach with EdTech.
Yeah. Marsha, any words of wisdom or any asks for the future as you start to scale your service?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Pippa. One thing, I mean, having worked in the, I would say, ICT for D or mobile for development space for 2 decades, we used to think that if you build something, people will come, And I think that's been quite an eye-opening experience for us at Sesame to see that that's not necessarily the case, even though you have a good brand, people love your brand. We still need to figure out how to, especially if you think of who we're targeting with our chatbot, it's parents and caregivers. How do we make that parent and caregiver that have multiple balls in the air, they have a full-time job, they've got 2 toddlers at home that are out of school, how do you make them stop the scrolling and focus on your content and internalize that content and take it in? We have not cracked that nut yet. We don't know what the answer is. We are here to figure that out with partners in the room. And so if people have any bright ideas on how to do that, can you grab a glass of wine with me tonight? I think that's really understanding the user. It's a parent or a caregiver that have multiple balls in the air. Why should they stop and focus and listen to our content? That's the question.
Yeah, and I think often we forget that we're competing with all the commercial services out there, right? We've heard TikTok being mentioned a couple of times today, but even as NGOs, we often think that we're in this isolated bubble in a bit, but we're actually competing against all of these commercial services for users' attention. But Jo, any words of wisdom for this crowd and what you learned?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think we're competing with TikTok because the teachers that we're working with probably aren't necessarily accessing Wi-Fi or data enough to be like insane TikTok addicts, although I'm sure some of them are, let's be honest. But, the users we're working with, for many of them, like WhatsApp is their main way of going on the internet. But yeah, I think if I had any words of wisdom, I really liked the last presentation when he was talking about the real human connection. And like maybe it's different for us in education than it is for the colleagues in health, because you're dealing with like serious life and death issues where we're trying to promote teaching and learning. So I think for us, we need to really think about how to make our chat service warm. Mm-hmm. And like you complimented us on our emojis, but they're there for a reason. Because I went on someone else's and it was just all text. And I was like, I don't want to look at this. I don't feel happy here. Mm-hmm. I don't feel comfortable here. Mm-hmm. Like ours, when people see it, they're like, they love it. Their faces light up. Because if the story is the lion and the rhino, then you can put the lion emoji or you can type lion, or what you get for the most part are audio files, and the audio teacher who does the files is like incredibly warm and sparkly South African. Like the minute you hear her voice, like you light up. And Yolanda and Deb, when they're on the back end, we have a help box, so if you get stuck in 24 hours, they're super sweet, to everyone. So it's not a cold place. So I think sometimes I get worried too, because even we were with a big funder the other day and they were like, just another chatbot or something like that. They made a really offhand comment and I was like, oof, ouch, because ours is great. But I think a lot of education organizations are coming on, and if it's not at the standard, it actually dilutes it for all of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and that's a concern for me. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, everyone. I think two things that I took out of this is a lot of you guys have an in-person component. So that human connection at the beginning to onboard users onto these chat services is key. And as educational organizations, always keep learning. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.